the Prime Minister is hopeful that inflation will fall tomorrow in some much-needed good news for the UK economy.
Rishi Sunak has reiterated, however, that the government will stick to their stringent plan even if more progress is made.
Well, inflation is my number one priority to bring down, and that's why I set it out in my 5 priorities as the first one. Why? Because it's inflation that's making people feel poorer. It's eating into the savings in their bank account, making sure there's less money that they have at the end of the month, and that's why we need to bring it down, and that's how we'll also bring down interest rates and ease the pressure on people's mortgages. Now, we are making progress. I'm not complacent, and we'll have more numbers this week which hopefully show continued downward movement on inflation, but we've got to stick to the plan. That means taking the right, responsible decisions for the economy, being responsible with borrowing, with public sector pay. And if we do that, we will bring inflation down, ease the burden on the cost of living for people. And I think people can trust me. They know that I know how to manage the economy. I will get inflation down for everyone, ease the burden on the cost of living. And in doing that, we will also be able to bring interest rates down over time too.
The Prime Minister speaking a little earlier this morning. Well, let's digest this now with GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope. Thanks for joining us, Christopher. First of all, the Prime Minister seemed fairly bullish there about tomorrow's inflation numbers. Does he know something that we don't?
Well, he shouldn't technically. These are ONS numbers and they are produced. He may have a feeling, may see figures below the line, aside from what the ONS is looking at, that gives him some optimism. I mean, it's what we all need to hear, because the figures out today showing spiralling wage inflation mean that the city is now looking at maybe 6% Bank of England base rate by next March, up from 5.75%. That's a big worry for anybody facing remortgaging at the moment. So I think he's come back from his holiday in LA with trying to find some kind of positivity here. There's a risk, of course, politically, if he starts talking about seeing light at the end of the tunnel, like he has done to me here at this hospital in Milton Keynes. The worry there is if that doesn't happen, people start to ask the PM, well, why do you say that? Don't forget, Norman Lamont got in some trouble for talking about the green shoots of recovery back in the early 90s, and that was used to really have a go at him over what he was awarded forecasting. So I think, the PM is being optimistic. He's come back from holiday. He's hoping we're seeing the beginning of the end of this issue of high inflation rates and high interest rates too, and that's the concern, is that will it actually happen?
The suggestion seems to be, or the worry seems to be, Christopher, that these wage increases then could lead to that rise in interest rates again.
That's the big worry. As I say, the city is now forecasting a 0.25% increase in the Bank of England base rate as far ahead as next March, and that, of course, is an election year. What Mr Sunak knows, and he told me here in Milton Keynes, that by trying to bring down controlled inflation, it's like a tax cut. It makes us all feel a bit richer because our money goes further. But if we look at interest rates going high until March, that gets quite near polling day for him, and he knows that's the pressure on him. What more can he do, though? He's here to show that he's the guy in charge. He understands the pressure on household finances, and he's desperate to try and bring down inflation.
It's interesting looking ahead to a potential general election, because the Tories are still 20 points behind in the polls. The Prime Minister said today that people can trust him on the economy, but looking at where public opinion is, what focus groups are saying, it seems like the people of Britain, at the moment at least, don't.
You've got to find some kind of red meat to try and cheer up the base. I mean, I think the hope for number 10 and the Tory strategists is that number is made larger, because lots of don't-knows are not saying they'll vote Tory. They're not saying they'll vote Labour either, or Lib Dem or SNP, but they're not going to vote Tory yet. So for many, there's a chance here that the polls can narrow, but many are thinking and hoping that Mr Sunak might bring out some form of a glimpse of a hinterland that he can imagine if he wins another term as Prime Minister. We haven't seen it yet.